My family cut me out of my father's will. No call, no explanation, just one page from a lawyer with my name missing, like I had never been his son. I let them think I accepted it, because 3 months later, everything they thought they had taken was sitting behind one locked door, and my signature was the only key. For the last 2 years of my father's life, I knew the sound of his house better than my own. The slow click of the hallway heater, the kettle that whistled too early, the loose floorboard outside his bedroom that always betrayed me when I tried not to wake him. Every Tuesday and Thursday, I drove him to appointments. Every Sunday, I picked up his prescriptions. Some nights, I sat beside his chair while he pretended to watch television, and I pretended not to notice how tired he was getting. He was not an easy man. He did not say thank you often. He did not like needing help. But near the end, when I would help him stand, he would put one hand on my shoulder and squeeze once. That was his version of a speech. My brother had a different role. He was busy, always busy. Work was impossible. Traffic was terrible. His kids had something. His wife needed the car. There was always a reason, and the reason always sounded polished by the time it reached me. He did visit, usually on holidays, usually with one hand already on the doorknob. He would ask Dad how he was feeling, then look at his watch before the answer was finished. My mother defended him. "He has a lot on his plate," she would say. I never argued. I just washed the dishes, changed the sheets, and drove home in silence. We buried my father on a Tuesday. The sky was gray, but not dramatic. No thunder, no movie rain. Just a cold wind and a row of people who suddenly remembered how much they respected him. My brother stood near the front in a dark coat, greeting relatives like he was hosting something. He was good at that. The firm handshake, the serious face, the quiet nod that made people think he had carried more than he had. My mother barely spoke. She looked smaller that day, folded into herself, both hands around a tissue she never used. After the service, people came to me and said the same sentence in different ways. "You were always there for him. You did everything you could. He was lucky to have you." My brother heard some of it. I saw his jaw tighten once. Not much, just enough. By Friday, he had already met with the estate lawyer. I found out from an email, not from him, not from my mother. An email. Subject line, estate review. The meeting was at my father's kitchen table, the same table where I had cut his toast into small pieces when his hands started shaking. The same table where he once told me that family does not fall apart all at once. "It leaks," he said. "One small, selfish thing at a time." I thought about that sentence when the lawyer opened the folder. The house, the savings, the land behind the old road. Everything was listed neatly. Everything was divided neatly between my brother and my mother. My name was not there, not reduced, not questioned, not delayed, just missing. Like someone had cleaned the page and wiped me off with the dust. The lawyer did not look comfortable. That was the first thing I noticed. He kept adjusting his glasses and reading carefully, like the words might change if he went slowly enough. My mother stared at her hands. My brother leaned back in his chair, not smiling. That would have been easier. No, he had the face of a man trying to look sad while checking whether everyone had accepted the arrangement. Then he said it. "Dad knew you wouldn't make a scene." That was supposed to sound like a compliment. It did not. Then he added, softer, like he was being reasonable. He wanted peace. Funny thing about peace, people usually demand it after they finish taking everything. I looked at my mother. She still would not look at me. I looked at the lawyer. He closed the folder with both hands. I could have asked questions. I could have demanded explanations. I could have said that for 2 years, I had been the one who showed up when showing up was boring, inconvenient, and unpaid. But my father had taught me something. Not every room deserves your pain. So I stood. I said, "Thank you for letting me know," and I left. Behind me, my brother said nothing. That was when I knew he thought he had won. For 3 weeks, nobody called. Not my brother, not my mother, not one relative who had told me at the funeral how much my father had depended on me. Silence has a shape when it comes from family. It fills the rooms you do not want to enter. It sits in your car when you pass the pharmacy where you used to stop every Thursday. It waits in the small things, the extra coffee mug you no longer need to rinse, the medical appointment reminders still arriving on your phone, the grocery list on your fridge with his soup, his tea, his crackers. The first week, I was angry. The second week, I was tired. By the third week, I understood something colder. They had not forgotten me. They had calculated me. They had decided that my grief was cheaper than their comfort. And still, I did nothing. Not because I was weak, because years before my father got sick, he had asked me to drive him to one meeting I was not supposed to talk about. It was a small office above a dentist. No fancy furniture, no family photos on the desk. Just a lawyer with a yellow legal pad and my father sitting beside me in the good jacket he only wore when something mattered. He looked healthier then. Older, yes, but still sharp. Still the kind of man who could make a room behave by clearing his throat. He signed a few papers that day. I did not read them. He did not ask me to. On the drive home, he stared out the window for a long time. Then he said, "When people inherit money, you meet the part of them they kept hidden." I remember laughing a little. I thought he was being dramatic. He did not laugh. He just said, "One day, they may all be very sure they know what I wanted." Then he looked at me. So I made sure someone honest would have to agree. That was all he said. I did not fully understand it then. I understood it 3 weeks after the funeral, when my phone rang at 9 in the morning and my brother's name appeared on the screen for the first time in over a month. "Hey," he said, like we spoke every day. "It's me." I almost admired the confidence. He did not start with, "How are you?" He did not start with, "I know things have been difficult." He went straight to business, but wrapped it in a voice he probably thought sounded casual. "Listen, there's just some paperwork thing with the land sale." Paperwork thing. That was the first promotion I had received in the family. From erased son to paperwork thing. He told me they had a buyer. Cash offer, good price, very fast closing. He said it the way people say good news when they have already spent the money in their head. Then his voice changed, just a little. "The title company says they need a trustee release." I said nothing. He kept going. "The lawyer says you have to sign off. It's just a formality." A formality. That was what he called me now. Not brother, not son. A formality. That was when the locked door opened just enough for him to see the hinges. The estate might have been theirs on paper, but the house and the land were held inside a trust my father had created years earlier, and the trustee was the son they had just erased. I did not own the house. I did not own the land. I could not take it for myself. That was never the point. But nothing could be sold, transferred, or divided unless I signed that the sale followed the trust. My brother had inherited the room. He just could not find the door. The first call was short. I told him I needed time to read everything. He did not like that. I could hear it in the silence before he said, "Sure, of course." The second call came that afternoon, then a text, then another. The language got softer each time. First it was, "Need this handled today." Then, "Can you please check when you have a minute?" By the next morning it was, "Hope you're doing okay." My mother called that evening. She had not called after the will. She had not called after I left the kitchen. But now her voice was warm in that careful way people use when they are walking across thin ice they created. "I just wanted to check on you," she said. I looked at the envelope from the lawyer sitting on my table. "Now?" I asked. There was a pause. Not long. Long enough. She sighed. "Your brother says there is a document." Of course he did. My birthday was 2 weeks later. For the first time in years, my brother remembered it. He sent a message at 7:14 in the morning. "Happy birthday, man. Hope we can get together soon." It is strange how fast family remembers your birthday when money writes it on the calendar. Relatives started appearing too. An aunt I had not heard from since the funeral sent me a heart. A cousin asked if I was holding up. Nobody mentioned the will. Nobody mentioned the trust. Everybody circled the same fire and pretended not to feel the heat. Finally, my brother asked to meet. "At the house," he said. "Dad's house. Not mine, not his, Dad's." I said yes. The house smelled different when I walked in. Not bad, just empty. The kind of empty that happens when someone's things are still there, but the person is not. His coat still hung near the door. His reading glasses were still on the small table by the window. Someone had moved his chair. That bothered me more than I expected. My brother was already at the kitchen table. Of course he was. Folder open, papers stacked, pen placed on top like a little invitation. My mother sat beside him, her hands folded in front of her. Same hands, same table, different performance. "Coffee?" she asked. I said no. My brother cleared his throat. "So," he said, "the buyer is ready. We just need to keep things moving." He slid the papers across the table, smoothly, like he had practiced it. "Just sign at the tabs." I looked at the yellow stickers, 3 of them, bright little arrows telling me where my usefulness began and ended. My brother tapped the pen twice. Not hard, just enough, like I was the delay in his transaction. I did not pick it up. The room got quieter than it should have been. Outside, a car passed. Somewhere in the house, the old heater clicked. I asked one question. "Why do you think Dad made me trustee and not you?" My brother looked at my mother. My mother looked at her hands again. There it was. The answer had been sitting at the table long before I arrived. My father had not trusted the loudest son. He had trusted the one who showed up. My brother leaned back. "That's not fair," he said. I almost smiled, not because it was funny, because fair had finally entered the room and nobody recognized it. He said, "We all did what we could." I nodded. That was true. That was the problem. He had done what he could. I had done what was needed. My mother finally spoke. "Your father wanted us taken care of." I looked at her. "No," I said. "He wanted to know who we became when he was not here to watch." She closed her mouth. For a moment, nobody moved. That silence was not empty. It had weight. It was the same silence they gave me 3 months earlier, handed back with interest. I could have refused. Legally, I had questions. Emotionally, I had more. I could have delayed the sale for weeks, maybe months. I could have made my brother explain himself in emails, forms, meetings, and rooms where his serious face would not help him. But revenge that turns you into the person who hurt you is not justice. It is just inheritance with better lighting. So I opened my folder. My brother's eyes dropped to it immediately. He had not expected me to bring one. I placed one page on the table. My signature has one condition. His jaw tightened. My mother looked scared then, not of me, of consequences. I explained it calmly. 1/3 of the sale, the third they had erased, would go into a fund in my father's name. Not for me, for the nurses and caregivers who had actually been there when family was too busy. The ones who changed shifts to stay late. The ones who learned how he liked his tea. The ones who called me when he was too proud to say he was scared. Not a cent would touch my account. Not one. My brother stared at the paper. "That's a lot of money," he said. It was the first honest thing he had said all day. I said, "Yes." He looked at my mother, waiting for her to save him from the moral math. She did not. For once, she looked at the page instead of her hands. Then she said, very quietly, "Your father would have liked that." My brother signed first. His hand was not shaking dramatically. This was not a movie. But the pen moved slower than it had before. Then my mother signed. Then I signed the trustee release. 3 signatures, 3 different truths. The sale went through. My brother got most of what he wanted. My mother was taken care of. The fund was created in my father's name, and I received nothing. At least, nothing a bank could measure. A week later, I went back to the house one last time before the buyer took possession. I stood in the kitchen for a while. The table was gone. The chair was gone. The coat by the door was gone. But the loose floorboard outside his bedroom still made the same sound. I stood there and heard it. One small, honest thing left in the house. People think revenge means taking something back. Sometimes it does, but sometimes it means refusing to become cheaper just because someone tried to price you that way. My family cut me out of the will. They took my name off the page and called it peace. But my father had written me into the one place they could not fake: trust. I did not take their inheritance. I made them admit what it had cost. I did not make them beg. I made them say my father's name out loud in the room where they had erased mine. And when my brother finally handed me the pen, he was not asking for a signature anymore. He was asking the son he ignored to prove he was still better than the brother who erased him. So I signed, not for him, not for my mother, for my father, and for the part of me that still wanted to leave that kitchen as the man he trusted. If it were you, would you have signed? Or would you have left them sit in that silence a little longer?